9 a.m. on Valentine's Eve, Friday the 13th, as Cherrington focuses on love and marriage. What are the trends, and how will they all affect you and your family? This is Cherrington Live, and with your help, lovely, for the next 90 minutes. Good morning again. We don't really have to tell you this. You already know it, but we have to keep all those civil servants and researchers busy. The bureaucracy bumbling along. Stats Canada reports big increase in the cost of living. You already knew that. What cost you $100 in 71 now costs $224 and change. Reason? Rising energy prices. And wait till we hit the world oil price figure. Homosexuals in Toronto fretting even more furiously as the Toronto Police Commissioners turned down a demand for an official inquiry into those police raids on the 4 bathhouses. Incredibly, we hear the audience yell to Phil Givens, the Police Commission chairman, "What will you do when they carry the bodies out of the gas chamber?" Wow. And those 2 American balloonists trying to float around the world in just 8 days, not 80 days, may have to come down. Their bag has developed a leak. Well, what are we up to today? We pondered, what are we going to do for Valentine's Day? We're not here tomorrow, of course, so let us look at this question of marriage. Is it out of date? A pipe dream? The rose-covered cottage, is that just a myth? We get your views on holy or unholy matrimony, and we delve into domestic bliss in a matter of seconds. Marriage. What are the odds of yours lasting? Based on Stats Canada's 78 figures, 1 out of every 4 marriages end in divorce. But latest U.S. figures show that if you married in 72, you have almost a 50% chance of receiving your decree nisi in the mail. However, in spite of the odds, more people are getting married. And in spite of the fact that the average marriage may last only about 10 years, they are returning to traditional expensive weddings, complete with engagement ring, expensive gowns for bride and attendants, lavish receptions with wedding cakes, which, believe it or not, can cost up to $350.
Okay, in a month we sell about from 30 to 40 cakes in a good month. And they cost, a real cake will cost from $45 to $350. And for rent, it will, we rent from $25 to $100.
The traditional side of the wedding is the church. The other is the courthouse, when on weekday afternoons for a cost of $15, a justice of the peace will perform the 5-minute ceremony. But there are alternatives.
We perform weddings for people in our chapel who, for whatever reason, they don't want to go to a church, and they have heard what happens in the court situation, and they're not happy with that. And what we're doing is providing an alternative for them. We have a nice chapel which accommodates up to 50 people. They can bring their friends, they can bring flowers, they can have a dignified wedding ceremony.
Whatever site or ceremony you choose, the first stop, of course, is City Hall for the marriage license.
Well, we average about $3,000 a year. It's about 50 a week, with it peaking in the spring. Yes, a marriage license costs $20. It's necessary for you to get a license at least 3 days before the ceremony. Well, the license is good for 3 months, but it's not necessary for couples to get a marriage license. They can have the banns read in their church.
Having decided to take the plunge and get married, don't fret over the divorce statistics. They don't mean that you are bound for the divorce courts, but they do mean that you're swimming against the current. So how do you avoid divorce, and can your marriage survive the terrible 80s? Will you welcome and say good morning to Mr. Don Wilson? He's a family life instructor at Sheridan College. Good morning, Mr. Wilson. What a day to be talking about love and marriage just before Valentine's Day. I have a theory, you know, Don, that if a man gives his wife a Valentine's present, he's got something to hide. What do you say?
Well, I just think that this is an opportunity for him to show his affection on Valentine's
A nice
Day.
little squeeze rather than some flowers or something. All the florists will be mad at me. Why do people come and be instructed in marriage?
Well, I think there's a increasing realization that marriage is a more difficult proposition, a more stressful one. There's the concern about divorce and other kinds of things. So that people are saying, how can I be a better spouse? What can I do that would make me more effective in a marriage, that can make this marriage something that would be more fulfilling for both of us?
But surely doesn't passion and love carry you along while she learns to cook and he learns to pick up the dirty laundry? I mean, there's always a sort of a period of adjustment, isn't there? But surely love conquers all.
I think the passion, love, just carries people along about 2 weeks after
2
marriage.
weeks. Yeah.
Give or take a few days?
Yeah, I think you're being a little generous with the 2 weeks, especially when he's left a home with good cooking and she's left a home where father was well trained.
If that's the kind of home they
But
left.
they come to you, Don, and what do you teach them?
Well, we have a course which is a preparation for marriage course, and we try to help the college students gain a greater appreciation of the kind of people they are. I think one of the most important principles that we try to get across is that having a good marriage is not finding the right person, but becoming the kind of person that would be a good marital partner. So we're trying to help students develop some of the interpersonal skills or qualities of being more caring, being more loving, being more sensitive to others, helping them to communicate more effectively, express their feelings more effectively, so that when they go into marriage, they have developed some of those kind of qualities that make for a better marriage partner.
But then, say a young fellow was a loving, caring, sensitive type, very generous, you know, with all the antennas flowing to sort of get the feedback. Would this not give his young bride, who might be pretty gung-ho, the opportunity of ruling him forever?
No, I don't think love opens one to manipulation. I think if one is really a loving person, they also believe in responsibility. They're not going to be manipulated.
Do you have to love yourself a little to get married?
Well, that's the first thing.
Is it?
You have to have a positive self-image. I feel good about myself.
Yeah.
I care about myself. Because you can't really be loving to someone else if you don't really care about yourself. Otherwise, you're very inward, you're very selfish.
Right.
And you want your own needs met. But if I feel good about myself, I feel that I'm a worthwhile person, then I can help you, I can help my wife feel that she's a worthwhile person.
Mr. Wilson, what in your experience, and your experience is long, you have a master's degree in marriage and family relations from Brigham Young University, what in your experience is perhaps the greatest burr under the saddle of marriage? The one that causes the most friction? Is it money? Is it sexual relations? What?
Well, it's not money and sex. Those are things we read in the media because those are things that are reported to the lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, and they're the kind of the symptoms. I think that if we were to oversimplify things, and let me oversimplify it first, is the people in our society tend to be somewhat selfish. We tend to be me-oriented. You know, I want what I want when I want it, kind of thing.
But isn't that part of liking me?
Yes, in part, but when it becomes extreme and it goes from being loving and caring for oneself and others to putting myself first rather than putting other people first, then we run into problems.
Selfishness, then.
That's right.
That in your is the big thing. That's where it starts.
That's where the roots are, and you see it. You begin to see it manifested by expecting too much from marriage. You expect the wife to be able to do everything in the sense of meeting my needs, or the husband being able to do all the things she would like, and when they're not able to, then they become frustrated. The romantic ideal of what marriage was going to be like before I married starts to crumble, and what do I have here?
Don, when does boredom set in?
Well, boredom can set in at any time. We know that the divorce, if we were to correlate boredom with divorce, if that can be done, we know that the divorce rates are highest between the second and fifth year of marriage. And they
Second and fifth year.
Yes, then they go up again after about 20 years of marriage, presumably after the children have left.
Right.
You know, there's some boredom there, obviously, for some couples, or they've been waiting until the children leave until they could separate. But I think boredom comes into a marriage when people lose the commitment or the desire to have the excitement or the positive feelings that they had in the earlier part of the marriage.
Right. What do you have to say? Is marriage on the way out? How do you define a good marriage? How do you define a bad marriage? What are the causes for all these divorces that we read about? The lines are open at 645-3211 if you're phoning from out of town, 645-3211, and do phone collect. We do this on Valentine's Eve, and we'll be back with Mr. Don Wilson, our expert, in a matter of moments. So your marriage is perfect. You have no advice to offer. You have no questions for Mr. Don Wilson, who cannot settle your marital problems here, but he might be able to give you some advice as you feel very romantic as we approach this great Valentine's Day. Don Wilson, women's lib, the assertiveness of women, women sort of trying to catch up. Has this had any effect on the spiraling divorce rates?
I think it has some effect. In the positive sense, it's helped women be more expressive in some of their resentments, some of their concerns, rather than repressing them and feeling embittered, feeling cheated, feeling negative. I think it's unfortunate that some of the women's groups have not taught women how to be more caring and how to be able to express their feelings in a more positive way.
In other words, they've made men sort of the enemy.
In many cases, I think that's true. Not all cases,
Yeah.
but I have seen that occur. And as a result, many women have tended to feel that, all right, now it's my turn to get what's due to me. And when we get into any kind of relations, whether it's labor relations or any kind where I'm going to get what I want out of marriage or out of a relationship, then you run into problems. You're in a confrontation, conflict, and you only kind of aggravate the situation.
Do you get any lesbians or homosexuals attending your course?
Well, if I do, I don't know that they are.
They don't sort of come to you and say, look, we're homosexual, we want to have a homosexual marriage, and we want advice.
I'm sure that there probably may well be. You know, I suspect there may well be, but
The rules for them are just the same?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the research we have on homosexuals that live together, they have the same kind of problems as heterosexuals who live together, you know, either in a marriage or unmarried state.
But they don't, their sort of unions don't last as long, do they, usually? I've read this somewhere.
I would guess that's probably true, but that is only guess. I don't have any research that I can really put my finger on.
Okay, let's take some calls. Charrington, good morning.
Hello. I'd like to know, what if you can sense the selfishness in somebody before you get married, but you think the person's worth it and you'd like to make them overcome it?
And you can change it.
Yes, like how much can you try before you give up?
Well, I think it depends on how much commitment you have to the person. I think it's very important to realize that the person you're going to marry is not going to be much different after you marry them. And that if you want to bring about change in them, then maybe that's something you want to talk about before you're married and express some of your concern in a loving way about that person's selfishness. And if you can do that, see how they respond.
Before you get married.
Right. And then if you go ahead on the marriage, then maybe that's one of the trade-offs. Nobody's perfect, and maybe you're going to go into a relationship where you're married to someone who's somewhat selfish.
But then many, well, I shouldn't say this, I'm generalizing, but then I'm in the business of generalizing. Many young ladies, it seems, get married, and then from the security of marriage, Don Wilson, start to try and change their husbands. They sort of say, I got you now, I got that little ring on whichever finger they wear it on. You're mine now, you're going to listen to me.
And
do they, or am I
well,
away?
yes, there are women who do that.
And men.
Yes, right. And when you try to change your partner, then what you have is a partner who starts to resist and starts to feel resentful. Versus if you try to create the conditions where they can change because it's something that they might want to do. If I sit down with my spouse and say, how can I help you be the kind of person you want to be? And then they choose to be less selfish. Then we have a working operation where we can change and grow together.
What about living together first? A lot of people are doing this. Young people especially.
Right, and on a surface, one would think that that would be effective. One would think, well, I'd get to know the person in an intimate situation, and I'll know what they're like in the everyday living. But all the research we have indicates that people who live together do not have a lower divorce rate.
They who have lived together first.
That's right. They do not have a lower divorce rate. As a matter of fact, some research suggests that they have a higher divorce rate. And my guess is the reason for that is it's something like, in some respect, the analogy of renting or buying a car. If you rent a car, you don't really care for it as much as if you buy it. And we get into living together, and it is kind of artificial. It isn't the real thing. You don't have children, and most families, most couples still have children, and that introduces a whole different marital lifestyle, a set of crises or a set of opportunities to grow. And people who live together learn certain aspects about the relationship, but it doesn't seem to be able to help them in marriage.
They don't become a team sort of thing?
Not in the way that is needed to be in a permanent relationship. In the back of their minds, evidently, they know it's a temporary relationship, and it's either going to break
or that it could be temporary.
That's
could be
right.
broken. What other questions do you have, young lady?
Yes, what you're saying is very interesting because, as a matter of fact, I am living together with my fiance. And
you find him selfish?
Pardon?
And you find him selfish?
Yes, I find he has a soft spot that I feel I'm getting resentful because I feel that he's pushing me a little bit. And I feel sometimes like I'm being abused a bit.
When you say he's pushing you, what does that mean?
I mean, he does things that he seems to do without consideration. Like, he'll say he's going to let me know what's happening or when he's going to be getting home from somewhere. And just like there's no consideration for my concern.
In other words, you cook dinner and he's late.
Yeah, or if I don't know just what's happening. Like, I don't like to be left in the dark. And I feel that he's doing that a little bit too much.
Okay, there's two things you might want to consider. One is that from a research point of view, we find that when people live together, they still fall back in the pattern of traditional husband-wife. The husband does the husbandly things and the wife does the traditional wifely things. In spite of the fact that when people go into the concept or into a relationship of living together, it's supposed to be done much more of on a mutually shared task kind of operation. But it doesn't seem to work that way. The other thing is that my guess would be that your feelings are stronger for him than his feelings are for you.
And the funny thing is that on the surface, he seems to think otherwise.
But
out in the open, it seems that he has terrible, strong feelings for me, and which I'm really doubting. Like, I feel like he's just giving, like lip service to it.
Well, he may have very strong, and I don't know, but he may have very strong passionate feelings, very strong physical feelings at times.
No, I don't even mean that. He just seems to have a strong sense of staying with me. But you see, I'm wondering whether I'm paying too high a price for it, or whether this is something I just have to, sort of accept.
So how can we wrap this up, Mr. Wilson? She's got to do some talking to this gentleman.
It may be that he wants to stay with you because you're providing the environment that meets his needs and doesn't meet your needs, and it may be that you need to sit down and say, I have a problem with this relationship, which is a little less threatening than saying you're creating a problem for me. And in saying I have a problem with the relationship, share with them how you perceive the relationship and see if you can talk it through.
Okay?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Boy, oh boy, listening to you, Don Wilson, you'd scare anybody off marriage. It's like a business arrangement, you got to do this, and I'm depressed about this. Good gracious, all a guy wants to do after being out in the jungle is come home, have a belt or two from a glass. I don't mean take it out of the wife. And relax and sort of scratch and watch a hockey game or anything like that. You know, quiet, sort of little island. Instead of sort of coming into this business where you've got to be careful, you know, is she happy and is everything all right?
Well, of course, a lot of women feel that they've had a hard day and they maybe need a rest when their husband comes home. They've been, you know, hacking around with the kids. Or...
You're on their side, Don Wilson. You're on their side.
Try and look at it from 2 points of view.
645-3211. If you're phoning from out of town, 645-3211. And phone collect will be back in seconds. Charrington. Don Wilson, who teaches family life at Sheridan College, is our guest. Good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say that once boredom and monotony set in a marriage, I almost feel it's not worthwhile staying together because you just seem to resent each other more and more. You don't seem to have the same feelings for each other. It seems like it should be over just like an old love affair. You go with someone, I've been married 15 years now, and this is the way I feel about my marriage. And I think back to the days that I was dating, and once you get tired of your boyfriend or he get tired of you, you went your own separate ways. Now, that was fine and you forgot about them, but when you've been married 15 years and you've got children, you can't do that, but yet both my husband and I sort of feel we would like to do that, but we haven't.
Sort of just forget about it.
Yes, because it's as if whatever was there before will not come back. And
That's quite a challenge, isn't it, Mr. Wilson, to rekindle?
May I ask whether your marriage was good at some time, in the sense of not being bored, warm, vital?
Actually, looking back, I feel, well, it certainly wasn't what I expected, but I think in those days we expected a little bit too much. It was just you get married and you'd be happy ever after.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was ever, I don't think we'd strong love for each other. But then I say to myself, what is love?
Yeah.
Well,
Hang on, ma'am. Hang on. Hold on. Go ahead, Don.
let me suggest that, firstly, most marriages experience boredom. Most marriages experience times of, why should I hang in on this when, you know, I could do this, that, or next thing, either professionally or with someone else. And so, firstly, you're with the majority of people out there that you experience either some boredom or a lot of boredom or a lot of disenchantment with the relationship. The question is your marriage important enough that you want to strengthen the bonds or rekindle something there or develop a more deep love relationship? Personally, I'm very committed to what a lot of people are doing these days, and that is becoming involved in a marriage enrichment experience. There are various organizations at Sheridan College, for example. I lead marriage enrichment weekends, and we have couples come whose marriages have not reached the point where they want to throw it in. They may be just average marriages where there are some problems or some boredom, or they wish it was a little better, and we get together and take people through a set of communication exercises, which is an oversimplified way of putting it, but give people an opportunity to focus on the positives that are in your marriage. Now, if you've been married as many years as 15, my guess is that you've had a lot of positive experiences in your marriage with your husband, a lot of meaningful ones, but like most people, we tend to forget those. And we tend to focus on the negatives. We tend to focus on the boring aspect. And I'm firmly committed that marriage enrichment, or through other organizations, there's Marriage Encounter, various kinds of marriage enrichment programs, that they're excellent ones, and they help to revitalize a marriage and help people to realize why they really do love and appreciate their spouse, and how they're loved and appreciated and valued by their spouse.
What about, if I may bring it down to a baser level, what about when the bloom is off the sexual attraction? Boredom sets in there.
Well, this is just a reflection. When the bloom is off the sexual attraction, it's really a reflection. The bloom is off the relationship as a whole. The sexual dimension, most marriage counselors feel, is a kind of a barometer to the relationship as a whole, normally.
Yeah.
And if a couple are happily married, if they're enthused about the relationship and feel good about it, then the sexual aspect comes naturally warm and exciting.
It's not the main thing, it's just a barometer.
That's right.
Okay, ma'am, the advice is you start thinking back to the good times, and, can you imagine life without this gentleman? Is that what you're saying?
I can imagine life without him, and on thinking about life without him, I would miss him, but to me right now it feels like a sort of a challenge, and I think I would be happier.
Do you think that life is slipping by?
I feel that, yes, life is slipping by, and we don't seem to have any fun together. Whenever we go out anywhere, it seems that we're nagging at each other. And I think, gee, nothing could be much worse than this. I know to be a single parent is certainly no joy, but neither is this. And there's a chance of maybe meeting someone as a single parent, meeting someone that could give me some joy, but this is so empty right now, and I don't think it's going to be rekindled.
Hang on, go ahead, Don.
There's an important thing to remember, and we have a lot of research that suggests that just like people before getting married meet someone and feel that they can live happily ever after with that person, there's an idealization before marriage. There's also the same kind of idealization that works within marriage, which says, if I could only get out of this crummy marriage, I would meet and be happy with someone. And if you talk to people that have had divorces, it's usually very gut-wrenching, and they're surprised how much of their life was intertwined with that person they were married to, even though the marriage seems blah, even though the marriage is very conflict-oriented. After you've been married 15 years, there are a lot of facets where that person is significant to you, but it's just kind of fallen away. And it sounds like a cliche, but I would really give some serious thought to either some effective marriage counseling or maybe a weekend away with your husband and a marriage enrichment program. Give that a try. See if you can revitalize it and build on something you have.
All right, ma'am, lots of luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We hope you've learned something. The lines are all full, but if you want to try and get through, 645-3211, phone that number, collect if you're out of town. We'll be back with Don Wilson talking about the problems of marriage and is marriage dying in a matter of moments. How many ladies out there can relate to what that Scottish lady was talking about? Boredom has set in, anything, even living alone would be better than this boredom. Boredom is a killing thing, isn't it? Charrington, good morning.
Yes, good morning. This is going to be kind of hard, but I went out with a gentleman for 7 years. We were planned to be married in 2 months. In between that, I met someone else, and then I guess realized what love really was. I married this guy. I've been married for 3 months now, and this is going to sound funny, but I'm at the point now where everything is too good. I'm too happy. Like, he leaves for work, and I go into a state of depression.
You can't stand to be apart from this.
No,
Adonis.
and we're both exactly alike. Like, I was talking to my mother, and I said, I can't believe that I could ever be this happy.
Well, isn't that nice on this Valentine's Eve, for goodness sake?
The problem, every day is like Valentine's Day.
What do you say, Don?
Well, I think that's great. I think that one has to be careful that this isn't part of the excitement and the atmosphere of early marriage, that this is a time to do the kinds of things that might strengthen and build that marriage.
Right. But the problem is he tries too hard. And I've told him, and I don't know what to do about it.
In what way?
Well, he works all day, and I'm here by myself all day at home, and he comes home and he wants to do everything.
You mean do the dishes, do the cooking, all that sort of thing?
Absolutely everything.
Madam, what kind of a gem have you found?
I know.
Huh? What are you phoning for?
We're glad to hear from you.
Oh,
It's just that I'm afraid of
Give
a
us his
letdown,
name. I'd like to be
because
his
when I went
agent.
out with the guy that I was going out with for so long, the relationship was terrible, and I knew I wasn't in love with him. It was just that I was so used to the routine and our friends and everything. And I don't know, it's just really hard when you find someone and you're so happy. And, like, it's hard to believe. Like, I can't believe that I could be obsessed with someone that much. And it's exactly the same with him.
Well, it may be a good thing for you to take a few minutes and sit down and say, how can we keep our marriage this way? What are the kinds of things that we can do that can help us keep the love alive that we're experiencing now?
in other words, don't dash his hopes by saying, no, don't do those dishes.
That's right.
Oh, I know, but it's
Bed's
terrible.
lovely, isn't it, eh? Does he make the bed, too, and everything?
No, I do that.
What else is there to say?
Well, sharing the household task with him, and as I say, talk to him about what you both can do to keep the relationship as warm and loving as it is now.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of sickening. An old cynic like me. Well, she's bubbling. Thank you.
Thanks.
You made our day. All right. See? Wonder what she's going to get for Valentine's Day. Charrington, good morning. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning, Tom.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll tell you what I have to say, and after that I'll listen on television to what you have to tell me, okay?
Right.
I was married before, and I had 3 kids out west. And I was alone. 4 years ago, my girlfriend introduced me to this man. And she says, you're lonely, and, well, he was a widow of 3 months. So she says, why don't you go live at his place, and, you know, you won't be so lonely. So I went and lived there. 6 months after we got married, it'll be 3 years in August we got married. And it just happened that he has 9 boys and 1 girl.
He has 9 boys and 1 girl.
And I got 3 of my own, 2 boys and 1 girl. But that's beside the point. It came to the point that he had 10 kids, and he was also an avid drinker. He's on DVA. So now I've been married for 3 years, and life is, you say, it's very boring. I was going to commit suicide. To me, it's not like there's no love, there's nothing in between us, just playing cards and look at one another.
Playing cards and looking at one another. Interrupted by 10 children?
That is right.
You have 10 of them
2 or
around
3
you?
you'd like, you know, to have the asset or some of the money he's getting, but we haven't got it.
All right, you go back and listen. Don, what do you do with that? Gentleman's got a housekeeper and a mother for his 9 kids.
What are the things that attracted you to this person before you're married? What was...
She's gone. She wanted to go back and listen.
I see.
So you're saying
Okay.
go back and look at those things.
Yeah. Why did I marry this person in the first place? And try to find
She
out...
was lonely.
Well, there must have been some positive things in the relationship.
Maybe his DVA pension.
It would seem to me that this couple needs to get away from the 10 kids. They need to get away, and I don't mean, go to Paris or
Right.
London, but they need to get away and have some time to build a relationship, to get to know each other a little better, a little more closely. I have 6 children, and children can be time gobblers. They can be they can stifle a marriage relationship if you allow that to occur. And I think this couple needs to, if at all possible, get away, farm the kids out, or have the older kids take care of the younger ones, or a combination of both. And even if they stay at home and just have some time together and talk about what are some of the things that we would like to do together, whether it's even go for a walk, go for a movie, or go to...
Bingo.
Yes, particularly
Bowling.
anything where they can communicate or visit and have fun together.
Rather than sit home, play cards, and
That's
drink.
right, and that's bad news.
All right. Charrington, good morning.
Yes, recently my father left us. It's happened 3 times actually. But he went off the deep end really, and he went out and he spent his money on different people, and the most recent time he went out and I guess he figured this is it, and he got himself an apartment 5 blocks away from her, and he got a car and everything. And then the next day he came back and said, I canceled everything, it's over, I'm going to stay. And from that, I don't know really whether to believe that he's going to stay here with us, or he's actually going to do this again, or, you know, what to think. I don't know whether the next person he sees is going to be one of his friends. And I wonder if you could kind of enlighten my situation.
Don, how are you going to handle that? I mean, you don't know the gentleman, you can't talk to him.
Does your father have any friends that you know that you could sit down and talk to regarding where your father's at emotionally and mentally?
Well, see, we, 3 years ago, we moved out to the country, and of course, with rising taxes and all, the taxes are over $1,000, and we've got 3 loans, and of course, we've got the car, and then there's the insurance payments and everything, and now we've got 2 cars, and there was really a financial pressure there, and well, I read in the paper about this. It's called male menopause, where it becomes mentally unstable at a certain age.
Any truth to that, Don?
Well, there is some truth to it, but I wouldn't put a great deal of credibility on it with regard to your father. We don't, you know, that we'd just be guessing. What kind of relationship do you have with him?
Well, really, more or less the friend type, but he's not really a father type. He's more of a
Buddy?
yeah.
What would happen if you went to your father and said, Dad, I really love you, I care about you, and you would do this in your own words, let him know how much he was important to you, and lay the cards on the table. Say, I'm really interested in what you're doing, what your choices are, and how I can be of help.
Oh, I've never tried that. I don't know. It might work.
Why not give it a shot?
Yeah.
Okay?
But in the present situation, do you think I could expect to see this happen again?
I don't know, but if you care for your father sincerely, I think, and you probably, if you're like most of us, you probably haven't expressed that, I would go and really share how you feel about him and let him know that he's important to you. He's evidently important enough to you that you've called into the show. So go and share with him why he's important to you, that you love him, and you're wondering about his well-being, and let him know that you want to make yourself available to help him in whatever way he wants. So you're not pushing. And if you do that, he may respond in a very positive way that might surprise you. Hopefully, anyway.
All right, sir. Lots of luck.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye. 645-3211. That's 645-3211. Do phone collect if you're out of town. We're talking about the problems of marriage. Is marriage here to stay? We'll be back. We thought this was going to be a rather light-hearted show, you know, Valentine's Eve, and it's developed into something far more serious because Don Wilson, our guest, who is an instructor in family life at Sheridan College, of course, said to me during one of the breaks, Sherrington, there are a lot of people out there who are living in pain over marriage, in pain. And I never thought about that. We've decided to ask Mr. Wilson to stay with us. We normally change subject at 10 o'clock, to stay with us till 10:30. As long as the calls show a variety of the cut of life of what's happening. We've heard from a child involved with a parent that keeps bolting, the lady who's bored and thinks that deeper water might be more interesting, the young lady who's ecstatically happy, and we hope she'll remain that way. But we're discussing marriage and the problems of marriage. Why are the problems, Mr. Wilson, coming more to the fore? Is it... I don't believe all this pace of life. Surely we live at the pace that suits us best. Everybody says we're on a treadmill, on a treadmill. Are we on treadmills?
Well, I think we are. I think that one of our problems in marriage is that we've developed a very high expectation of what we get out of marriage.
Right.
100 years ago, A woman, for example, would be very satisfied to have a husband who was a good provider, a good Christian, and didn't beat her too often.
Right.
Without being facetious about it.
No.
And a husband would be happy and satisfied to have a wife who cooked and provided the housekeeping chores and bore him children. And people didn't expect much more out of marriage. But now we're in a society where I had a student who came to me and had 26 characteristics you want in a husband. Tremendous amount of expectations.
26.
And it's extremely difficult to live up to that kind of thing. And most young people won't admit that I've got 26 or 12 or whatever number of items, or I've got a whole number of expectations in marriage that are important for me to be happy. But people do. And when we have high expectations and they're not met, then we feel cheated, then we feel hurt, then we feel disappointed.
And the thing to do is to sit down and talk about those expectations.
And be more realistic with ourselves. Before we can change someone else, we have to look at ourselves and change ourselves.
Have to like ourselves.
We have to like ourselves, but we also have to change ourselves before we try to change someone else. We're too quick at trying to change our spouse. Maybe we need to look at ourselves and say, are my demands reasonable? Are my expectations reasonable? Am I wanting these things out of my needs, or am I considering his or her needs?
Right, down to the lines. Charrington, good morning.
Hi, Tom.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law.
Would you turn down your television set, please?
My sister was married a while ago.
Yes.
And her husband
Yeah.
is sick of the married life right now.
Yeah.
Has too busy going to and fro, and he's never with her anymore. And I'd just like a little advice to give to her to help her out. He goes out and he drinks and has time with her friend, but she gets home with the baby all the time and never gets to go nowhere.
How long have they been married?
About a year now.
All right, you go back to that television set that's blaring away and watch.
Okay, sir.
All right, being married about a year. Baby. Classic case.
Well, what we have here is the kind of thing that is not too unusual, where baby comes along and a couple is involved in what we call disengagement. They're starting to move out in their own worlds. His world is the world of work, and that's where he is now getting a lot of his fulfillment out of it, and probably expecting that her fulfillment should be coming out of being the mother. And this, of course, is not the case. She didn't marry just to be a mother. She married to be a wife and get some of the fulfillment out of it. And I think that the first step for her is to say, what can I do to make myself a better wife? Rather than to say, what can I do to change him? Let's leave that down the line a little bit. What can I do to make our home life a place where he enjoys being? Now, maybe she's already doing that. We don't know. But to review that, and then to be able to sit down and say to him, my marriage is important to me. Our marriage is important. You're important to me. And I wonder how or what we can do to make that marriage more happy, more effective, because I'm feeling a little left out. And try and say these things in a way that she's sharing her feelings without criticizing or putting him down.
But boy, Don, you got to be terribly intelligent to have a good marriage. You know, think of all these things.
I'm not sure it's a matter of intelligence. I think it's a matter of being loving and sensitive to the other person. And we have a lot of intelligent people that aren't very loving and sensitive, and we have a lot of people with low intelligence that are very loving and sensitive.
But something happens when a baby arrives to a young father.
Yes.
He feels left out.
Very often. And she may want to look and see, am I taking too much time with the baby? She may not be, but sometimes the baby becomes the woman's world and he feels a little left out. That can happen.
Charrington, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Charrington
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Mr. Wilson. I enjoy your program thoroughly
Thank you.
each morning. But I want to say, from a viewpoint of 45 years of marriage, as the lady who was married just 3 months, that marriage is still the best of all worlds.
For who, the man or the woman?
For both.
Ah.
My husband's on the extension. I guess he turned it off and is listening on TV. But,
Why we asked them what makes their marriage
All right, get him on, madam.
Ray, get on.
What's his name, Frank?
Ray.
Ray? Ray's under the bed.
It's the best of both worlds for both of us, and it's been so.
All right, Ray. Okay, hang on. We got two people. You're rich. You got an extension. What is good in your marriage, Ray? 45 years of bliss, man. Wow.
You tell him, if you like. He wanted to know from you, Ray.
Yes, he wants to know what?
Ray, can't you understand English? What makes it good for you?
Well, I'm satisfied in every way. It's everything I expected it to be.
Yeah?
No complaints, believe me.
How
I'm
about
happy.
that?
All right, ma'am, you go ahead. What's the secret?
I think the secret is intelligent choice before you marriage. The pre-marriage idea of what are your ideals, what are your desires, what are your goals, what are your life plans before you ever make the commitment. You have to find that you both have self-respect, you both have the same commitments, the same goals. Even for the procreation of children, there should be a mutual plan for your children's future.
Yeah.
It should be a feeling and an intelligence both.
What would you say, Mr. Expert?
I think that's very significant and something that most people don't do. I would be interested in asking you, in the light of one or two questions we've had earlier, what have you done to overcome boredom? How have you dealt with boredom? Or
Very
has that ever
easily.
been an
I
issue?
think you both bring talents and interests into a marriage, and through these talents and these interests, you have a chance to give to each other new perspectives, new ideas, things that you found out, a simple walk, a beautiful thing like taking your mate on a mystery trip, that they don't know where you're taking them. And
On a
other
mystery-
times he'll take me on a mystery trip, and I'll say, how shall I dress? It may be to a theater that he saw a good review on, or anything.
Ray, you devil, you go in with these mystery things.
How about that?
How about it?
You know what I think?
What?
I think that we should, in somehow, some way, subsidize our children as when they marry, because the educational system being what it is, you have to get all these degrees, and yet what did nature intend when they allowed young people, when nature allowed young people to mature? Did they expect them to wait till they're 30, till they've got all these graduate degrees before they...
I don't know, madam. But it's nice to hear from you, Ray. You okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right. What's the mystery for Valentine's Day, Ray?
That's my secret.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Ray, and I don't know the lady's name. 645-3211, the problems of marriage, the joy of marriage. We'll be back. Bye. Charrington, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
I must say, it's nice to see Mr. Wilson again. He was my professor at Sheridan College back in 1969.
Well, do you take a marriage course?
Well, that's what he was instructing at the time.
Well, I know, but has it worked?
I've often thought about it, and it has helped through the years of my marriage, but I have a problem now.
Oh, one of your old students, Dawn. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to know from Mr. Wilson how I could help a depressed husband.
Do you know why he's depressed?
He, is bored with the responsibility of a wife at home with 2 kids and a job and a car that doesn't work, and every single day there's something else that he comes home raging about, that he's angry with, that he's had the responsibility to look after.
Okay.
Boy, a lot of husbands feel like that, yes.
What can I do to help him? I mean, he's at the point now, we broke up in the summertime because, I had a car accident, and while I was in the hospital, he took my children to his girlfriend's house so that they would have someone to look after them.
He's got a girlfriend.
Well, he doesn't anymore. We broke up during the summertime, and we have been back together for a few months now, but he woke me up the other night from sleeping and said that he was going to leave at the end of the month again, saying that, I would be better off without him the way that things are and the way that he feels about himself and everything else. And I can't get him to see a psychiatrist or even talk to a general practitioner to see about anything.
Okay, let me
Listen.
I can do.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
let me suggest first that your husband is and has experiencing, if I'm sensing it correct, a tremendous amount of stress.
Yes.
He's probably feeling that he's not very worthwhile, he's not coping very well, he's not being a very good husband.
Right.
And I would guess also that he is experiencing a tremendous amount of hurt and pain. And the depression is a result or a reflection of the pain that he's experiencing. Now, I can't help you any more than that over TV, but if it's all right with Mr. Charrington, I would suggest, particularly being a former student, why don't you give me a call
At Sheridan?
at the Sheridan College, and maybe we can talk about it in more detail and see if we can come up with a plan for you to help him and give him some support that makes him feel that he's valued by you, which he probably isn't feeling right now, and maybe rebuild the marriage.
Well, yeah, that would be a good idea, but the thing is that I'm scared of him now.
Physically?
Sometimes, yes.
Or is it that you're scared about keeping the relationship with him because you don't want to be hurt?
No, I don't think it's that. Like when he comes in the house, if it's not spotless, I mean, you just pick something up and throw it.
Okay, he's suppressing a lot of anger. And again, that anger is coming out of his hurt. Why don't we chat about it and see if we can come up with an answer?
Okay, that would be helpful.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Is this young lady making a mistake by saying he won't go to a psychiatrist, he won't go to a marriage counselor? When somebody's angry, hurt, mad, frustrated, they don't want to go and see some shrink.
That's right.
They don't want to go and see a marriage
That's
counselor
right.
because they believe the marriage counselor will sit there as judge and say, you're right, you're wrong.
That's right. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people won't go to marriage counselors, and that's unfortunate because a marriage counselor is not there as a referee. He's not there to dig out all their past. He's able to, if he or she is effective, to watch the way they relate to each other and to talk about how they can relate better and build a relationship more effectively.
All right,
It's
I
not
hate
gonna
the
take
word relate
sides.
because it's one of these modern buzzwords. In other words, get down and say, look,
Here's how the marriage is going to work well for you if you'll try these kinds of things, if you'll work on these kind of areas.
and is it based on having heard hundreds and hundreds of similar stories?
No, it's based on understanding the way, what it is that, I don't want to use a buzzword.
All right, well, it just relate, you know.
Well, I think a counselor, if he or she is well qualified, they have seen a great deal of people, they have had clinical training, and they're able to look at the nature of the relationship and what's wrong with it and how it can be improved.
Do you think that once a married couple has to go to a marriage counselor, isn't that the beginning of the end?
No, I'd like to think it's the beginning of the beginning.
Okay. Charrington, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Charrington.
Yes,
and
madam.
Mrs. Wilson. I'm nervous. This is the first time I've called you. Many times I've wanted to.
Go ahead, ma'am.
But I was married 49 and a half years. My husband passed away 5 months before we would have been married 50 years.
Right.
And I believe the young people are getting married, and it has to be a 50-50 basis. And especially if you have children.
Wait a second, madam.
Yeah.
If I may intrude.
Yeah.
Is 50-50 the answer? It can't always be.
Absolutely.
Hang on, ma'am.
You have our...
Hold on, madam, please. Is it always 50-50?
No, it really isn't, and I don't think the lady really means that. I think what she's saying, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think what she's saying is marriage has to be a partnership.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it has to be a sharing kind of thing. And sometimes it's going to be 90-10, and sometimes it's going to be 10-90, but it works out over the long haul as being 50-50.
A partnership.
Exactly.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
I think, and it's important to make it on a partnership basis, especially if you have children.
Right. Thank you very much. Well, the children belong to both of you.
That's right.
645-3211. We hope you're learning something from this. Our guest is Mr. Don Wilson. He is a family life instructor at Sheridan College. Been doing this since 1969. That student was
Yes.
there with you a long time. Boy, he's seen a lot of joy and a lot of misery. And he was telling us about the things that can be done to try and help make your marriage a little bit better. We'll be back. Charrington, good morning.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, you're on.
I'd like to ask Mr. Wilson.
Yep.
Okay, my husband and I will be married 6 years tomorrow. And for the last 6 years, every night's been pretty well the same routine. Like he'll come home and he goes to sleep until I stick supper under his nose and gets up and eats it and then goes to sleep again. Like, is there something that I'm not doing, or?
He might be very, very tired.
Yeah, but every night. Then, you know, like after he eats his supper, he'll go to sleep and then he'll get up and go to bed.
Is he overweight?
I think he is.
Probably. Tired of carrying all that weight around. But you're the expert, Mr. Wilson.
Is there a high stress factor in the nature of his work?
He's a production manager, but I don't think so anyways. It might be mental stress, but I don't think physical.
Have you ever asked him why, you know, you don't have more positive time together?
Yeah, and it's not really worth asking because 9 times out of 10 it ends up in an argument.
That means he responds in some way that's negative.
Yeah, like he's very defensive. You know, when I ask him, like, why can't we sit down and talk? You know, tell me about your job, tell me what you did, or, you know, stuff like that. It just doesn't work out.
He may hate his job, eh?
I don't know.
Was there any time in your marriage when it was positive and exciting and rewarding? Or has it always been this way?
It's pretty well always been. Like, we used to talk before we were married, but I don't know, he says he's happy, you know, with married life, and...
It's not much for you, is it?
No, not really.
Do you have children?
Yes, we have an 8-month-old.
And do you work?
I did up until 2 months ago.
What was the nature of your work?
I was a secretary.
Was there anything about that interfered with your marriage, possibly?
No. The only thing I can think about that was, like, I'm not a very good cook. So, like, when I come home at night, you know, I'd sit here and wait for him to get up and make something.
Well, it's unlikely your cooking skills is the problem.
I hope not. They are improving, though, since I've been home.
Does your husband feel that he's missing something out in marriage, do you think?
I don't really know. Like, he likes to go out with the guys and that, but, you know, once in a while we go out, but it's always with other people, like we never go out by ourselves.
Well, it's hard to diagnose anything in the time we have. Would he go to a marriage counselor? Would he go to a marriage enrichment weekend?
Probably not. According to him, this is normal. Like, I guess with the life that, you know, he was brought up with, his parents are pretty well the same as he is.
How do you feel about your future in the marriage?
I don't really know. That's what bothers me. Like, he's the 4th child, and his 3 older sisters are all divorced and remarried. You know, so, like, does that mean that we're next, or?
What would happen, and we can't take much more time, I'm not recommending you do this, but what would happen if you said that you were not happy with the marriage, there didn't seem to be any warmth and satisfaction in it, and you either had to you felt that you need a marriage counselor or some kind of marriage enrichment experience, or you're going to see your lawyer? How would he respond?
He would probably just clam up and either ignore what I'm saying or, you know, get defensive again.
Well, I don't know what would be the best thing to do. I think it might be good for you to go to a marriage counselor. And while that's not ideal, it may give you some insights of what you can do to maybe give him some encouragement or support to see that there could be a better relationship if he might and you might change it somewhat.
May I come to your rather comatose husband's defense? He may be extremely tired. Why I asked if he's overweight. He may not be very physically fit. A lot of people are being through this sort of thing. He may be just exhausted when he gets home. Do you think he's really exhausted, ma'am, or bored? Is he escaping in sleep?
Yeah, I think that's...
You think it's escape?
You can check that out by talking with your family doctor.
But this can happen. Some
Yes.
men are mentally just dry when they get home.
That's why there'd be some value in talking to your family doctor first.
Okay, ma'am?
Okay, then.
Lots of luck, and it's your wedding anniversary tomorrow.
Right.
Right, bye-bye. Well, you know, I've experienced this myself. You get home and you're just dead.
Yes.
But other people escape in sleep, too, don't they? Sherrington, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
I can relate to two of those calls you've had, like the woman that called after 15 years of boredom.
Yes?
I've been through 2 divorces, and she had better think twice on that, because boredom can be very much so when you're single, too, with children especially. I've had one short marriage after that, didn't even last a year. This is in a period of 14 years. Then I've met a man that I've gone with for 4 years, and I'm remarrying for the 3rd time.
You're remarrying the same man?
No, and yet my first husband that I had 2 children with, and we're still best of friends after 12 years.
I thought you were marrying the same man 3 times, madam. That would be Guinness Book of Records, wouldn't it?
Man, and I'm marrying an older man now in June.
Are you trying to find are you marrying a pension or something?
A what?
A pension?
No,
Something
I'm far
to keep you
from a
warm in
pension.
your old age?
I'm only 42.
No, but him.
He's
said he
only
was-
10 years older than I am.
What do you have to say, Don? I don't know why you're smiling.
Well, I'm smiling at you, Tom.
Oh, well, that's good.
Have you been able to get a feel for why your other marriages didn't work?
Oh, yes, there was good reason. First time he was an alcoholic that just couldn't reform, and I was a complete non-drinker. But he was a good man in many ways, which is the reason we've been able to stay friends, because of our children. And more or less had to. And the second time, it was a very physically mad man, which lasted less than a year.
Well, I would wish you the best and hope that...
And I have met, like, your girl that was blooming, that
Yeah.
sort of man.
That sort of man.
He is a gem.
You who, the number 3?
Over 4 years, yes. He's number 3.
Well, at least she's found
well, maybe...
a gem in the rough, so to speak.
He's
maybe-
a real gem.
Okay, madam, keep golfing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. We'll be back with Mr. Wilson and the marriage problems on this Valentine's Eve. I'm ready to cry. Mr. Wilson, you have a book there that you really feel should help people, a book that you use as a text
Yes.
in your course. Would you like to hold it up and show people?
It's a book called Couples, recently published, written by Dr. Crawford Broderick, who is executive director of the Marriage and Family Counseling Center at the University of Southern California. It's written in a way that people can read and understand. It gives some specifics of how to relate to particular problems and how to strengthen your marriage, and we at the college who teach marriage really highly recommend it for people of any age, and also for people preparing for marriage.
Who's the publisher?
Simon & Schuster.
Simon & Schuster. Couples by Dr. Crawford Broderick, put out by Simon & Schuster. Right. Sherrington, good morning.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about my mother and father.
Yes? Turn your television set down.
Oh, just a second.
Thank you. Gotta have that TV set turned down, please, before you come on the air. Otherwise, it's very confusing.
My mother and father, they're getting divorced, and I was wondering if you have any advice to get them back together.
How old are you?
17.
17. How are you going to do that, Don?
How long have your parents been contemplating divorce? Do you know?
Oh, I'd say about 2 months, a month, around there.
This may be a tough one for you, but from your perception, do you think that they have the kind of relationship that can be rebuilt?
Well, I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I'm the only child, and I think it's all because of me.
It's what?
It's all because of me or something. I don't know. They're always fighting about me.
What do they fight about?
Well, I don't know really.
Well, you must know.
Well,
Come on, nobody knows who you are.
Get in trouble quite a bit.
With the police?
Yeah.
Well, my guess is that you're who they argue about, but they've got a lot of hurt and resentful feelings between each other, and that it's not you who is the problem, it's just you who happens to be available to argue about. Can you remember any time in your younger years when your parents were happily married?
Yes, I can.
So at one time in the marriage they were happily married?
Yes.
Well, and I'm assuming again, because you're calling in here, you really care about them.
Yes.
Well, let me suggest something similar that I mentioned earlier in the show. If it's at all possible, get your parents at a time when they're not upset and sit them down in the living room. Do you think you can do that?
I don't know.
Well, you do it, because it's important, and tell them that both of them are very important to you, and that you love them and care about them, and that you'd like them, and maybe you too, to go to a marriage counselor and resolve the problems, because you don't feel that they would be happy divorced, and it wouldn't make you happy either. And it ought to be worth that kind of effort before they destroy a relationship that has been going on for so long. And see if you can use your influence. And sometimes parents will listen to someone your age when they won't listen to each other, or they won't even listen to another adult.
Will you try that, sir?
Yeah.
Good. Let us know how you make out.
All right.
Right. Lots of luck.
Okay.
Bye-bye. 17-year-old. He doesn't know what his future's going to be.
He's pretty confused and hurt.
We haven't even touched on what divorce does to children, have we?
No, we haven't.
Charrington, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Charrington.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't cry. You sound sad. But,
Well, it's a delightful subject, this, isn't it? Go ahead, ma'am.
why is it that the ladies who are calling in your show making excuses for the men coming home lying on the Chesterfield and after work and had a hard day? You know, like women cope with children, and then how do you cope with a man who gets a girlfriend, and how do you,
Go on. Go on, ma'am.
he has a girlfriend and she has no children and you have 2 children, and he drives her home from work and he goes home into her apartment, a nice apartment, no 2 big teenagers running around to handle. And it's beautiful. We'd all like to cop out like that, have a nice apartment to go to and sit.
Right.
and
Okay,
have
ma'am.
your
Would you
drink
go back to your television set? Could you wrap this up very quickly? Lady makes a good point.
Well, it is a good point, and it's a problem. One of the things that you can't change your husband. You can possibly change yourself. Is there any possibility that for some reason he's involved with someone else because he doesn't feel that he's very worthwhile or valued at home? And maybe he's not making you, you know, it's a double-edged sword.
So you got to look at yourself. Thank you so much for coming along, Mr. Wilson, and giving us all this advice. We went the whole 90 minutes with it. Thank you, Don Wilson, Family Life Instructor, Sheridan College. Monday, credit cards, consumer credit, the joys and perils thereof, and then a mad piece on waterbeds. Thank you for being with us. I'm Tom Charrington. Have a nice Valentine's Day.